What is good? We're back, and we got another episode with Joseph from Quality Stats. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Just still trying to get moved into a house, and so happy that football's back. We're in a good situation. We got data and we got football, which are two of my favorite things.
How could it be any better? Well, the viewers' day just got better because if there is one stat you need to know, it is this one, baby. Joseph, what do we got for him today?
Yeah, so we have what I call the best stat in football, right? So this is a incredibly mathematical and intense model that I created using route level PFF data. This data is not available to the public. This is data that NFL teams use. This is data that NFL agencies use. Places like Sumer Sports use this data to help consult with NFL teams. And they have their own data that they use to help consult with NFL teams. But this is very intense data, route level. We are looking at, is a player open? What kind of separation did they get? What kind of grade are we going to give them? What kind of route did they run? How deep was that route? All that good stuff. I combined all of that into a single model that predicts whether a player should have gotten a target and how many air yards they would have gotten on said target, right? So when you do that, you can derive a lot of very good and stable metrics off of that. So I created what's called share of predicted targets and share of predicted air yards. Both of these are more stable and more predictive than their real counterparts, right? Target share and air yards market share. These are both more predictive. On top of that, I combined those two stats into what I call predicted Whopper, right? Predicted WOPR, which is just a weighted opportunity rating. It tells us kind of if a receiver is the number one receiver on their team and are they getting opportunities, right? That's what normal Whopper does. Predicted Whopper does the same thing. It just doesn't actually involve targets, right? It involves my predicted target metric. So these are you getting open, and are you better at getting open than other players on your team, right? Are you good at getting open, and are you better than everyone else on your team at it? And then same thing goes for air yards, right? It's just an air yards component. And then when you combine those, you get a predicted Whopper that is by far the most stable metric in football. I know that on a year-to-year basis, there are some stats that I've seen out there that have, say, a 0.36 R squared, and they are touted as the best metric in football. This metric has a 0.51 R squared. It's a significantly better year-to-year R squared, and I do promise this is the best metric in football.
Ooh. Now, so this metric doesn't necessarily care how you're winning or getting open. It doesn't care about the depth of target or anything like that. It's just showing you that you were able to do such a thing at a high rate, and it was maybe semi-unrealized?
Yeah, I would say that it's kind of like an unrealized air yards or unrealized targets in a way, right? These are like you could earn, if you run a slant, you're wide open on 1st and 10, right? You might earn a 70% chance of being targeted on that play. But if your quarterback looked the other way, or your quarterback ran, or your quarterback did anything other than target you on that play, well, then you just had 0.7 unrealized targets, right, on that play. You didn't get a target. And then, so we can add those up. Or if you did get a target, by the way, so, say you did get a target on that play, well, now you're 0.3 over expectation, right? And we do this over the course of an entire game. So if you do this on every single route, on every single play, and then you look at how the rest of your team did, you can derive stats that are more stable and more predictive than any actual stat that currently exists in the public domain. Yeah,
and I thought when you were explaining this to me, what was cool was that your predicted version of this worked better than the actual version of this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if you take actual Whopper, actual WOPR, which is just a weighted combination of target share and air yard share, right? It's 1.5 times target share plus 0.7 times air yard share. That stat is the most stable, typical wide receiver metric that exists. On a week-to-week basis, it has a 0.47 R squared to itself. So if you try to predict next week's Whopper with Whopper, you get about a 0.47 R squared. If you use my predicted Whopper to predict actual Whopper of next week, you get a 0.54. So it is better at predicting Whopper than Whopper is at predicting Whopper.
Yeah, I mean, Burger King's the king. They got the Whopper. I mean, here's
Whopper.
it's a king, baby. Yeah. So there's also another part of this, you had predicted ADOT in there, and I thought that's an interesting dynamic of this too. That was kind of where I was asking. It doesn't care where you're getting, like how you're being used. Are you being used as a deep threat, or are you being used as a non-deep threat? And I think throughout this thing, you've got a bunch of different guys who win different ways on here. And I thought that was interesting because I feel like sometimes these stats really get convoluted to maybe only win. You're the best if you win in a specific way, but this seems to not care about that. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, so I derive, like with all the, we have predicted air yards and we have predicted targets. And with both of those, you can derive a lot of different metrics, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the ones that I derived is I divided air yards by targets, right? That's in standard, football analytics, that's called ADOT, right? Average depth of target. But when you use predicted air yards and predicted targets, you basically can get an understanding of like, where is this player running routes on the field? And are they a deep threat? Are they a mid threat? Are they a short threat? And average depth of target can kind of give you that, but it doesn't tell you when they aren't getting targeted, right? Like, where are they when they aren't getting those targets? And so that's what my metric can do, is it can tell you where a player's at, even when they aren't earning a real target.
Yeah. No, this is super, super helpful things, and everybody should be paying attention to this. Joseph, you also put this down in written form over on PFF, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I created this metric last year when I was writing for PFF. This was actually kind of what gave me the, got me the gig at PFF. I created this metric and started writing weekly articles about it. Basically, using predicted WOPR, I can project forward to see who's going to have, or who has a higher outsized potential of having a breakout game next week, right? Mm-hmm. So I can look at this week's data and say, oh, you ran a lot of really good routes. You just weren't getting the targets that you should have gotten. And we can see, like, over many years, I ran this back tested for the last 5 years, right? Over the last 5 years, we see the NFL teams, we'll go back and review and see, oh, you were wide open on, say, 7 different plays. We're going to give you the ball next week, right? We're going to force feed you the ball next week. The whole idea for this came from, in 2023, the Vikings were playing the Eagles in week 2, and A.J. Brown was just livid on the sidelines. I'm sure some people remember that, but he wasn't getting in targets. Devonta Smith had a pretty good game, and A.J. Brown was just running wind sprints. He was crying about it. I think that was the game he swapped to his Joker profile picture. He was so mad. And then the next week he had 13 targets, right? And my model predicted that, by the way. Like, if you go back and look at the backtesting, my model easily predicted that. And that's because he was open during that game. He just wasn't getting the targets. And the Eagles, when they reviewed the film, they were like, yeah, he was open. Let's force feed this man. It's A.J. Brown. And he had a fantastic game. We see that over and over again. I've back tested it. On average, if you show up on the list that we're about to show, and what this whole video is about, if you show up on that list, you on average score 5 more fantasy points than you typically would, and you have a 3-point higher ceiling than a typical player. Right? So these are players that, in general, across the board, on average, perform better. That doesn't mean everyone will, right? Like, right. I think that's really important to say. It's
on average.
On average, right? Yeah. It doesn't mean if you show up on this list, you're guaranteed to be successful next week. But on average, if you show up on this list, you have a higher chance of being successful next week than a typical player.
What's good? You know the phrase, the house always wins? Well, not anymore with our new sponsor, ProfitX. ProfitX is America's #1 sports prediction market. It's a peer-to-peer prediction market where users play against each other instead of a sports book versus the house. You almost always get the best price on any spread, money line, or total and player prop, since you're playing against other people rather than the book. Looks and feels like a sports book with way better odds. Use promo code FFD to claim up to $200 in profit cash, all plays in the first 30 days of the site's terms and conditions apply, obviously. Let's see. What kind of play do we want here? We got a lot of talk about predicted WOPR, or predicted Whopper, if you will. And Tyquan Thornton is really high on this list. Seems prime for a breakout in Kansas City's depleted wide receiver room. I've got him and Mahomes hooking up for a big play in there. So I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes, longest pass over 35.5 yards here. We're going to smash the over, and we're going to cash that all the way to the bank. Come on a ride with your boy over here at ProfitX, promo code FFD. Appreciate you. That's what we're trying to do, right? Trying to, predict predict some things here. So, all right, we've been edging this thing long enough. Let's shake it a little bit and get to completion. Who we got on this list this week, Joseph?
Yeah, I think the most interesting player to me on the list is it's got to be Devonta Smith. He shows up as the number one predicted Whopper player, at least on this list. He wasn't the number one overall predicted Whopper player, but he was the number one predicted Whopper that showed up as a route-based hero, right? He only had a realized Whopper of 0.26, right? He only had a 0.26. That's really bad. That is, that is like wide receiver 3 numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like not what you want to see out of maybe even wide receiver 4. Like it's just not good. And it was a function of, I mean, I'm sure, maybe from a film perspective, you could elaborate on them more, but Jalen Hurts didn't have the best game as far as throwing the ball. He only had an average depth of target of 4 yards, and that was including a 60-yard bomb. He really just did not have a great game at passing the ball. Right. Whether that was a good game at quarterback, that's a whole different topic. Sure. But he didn't pass the ball that well. And Devonta Smith, I initially thought A.J. Brown was the player that got cheated out the most. I'm like, how did A.J. Brown not get all these targets? Like, what did he do? Devonta Smith had a 0.77 predicted Whopper. A.J. Brown's was a 0.49. And if that holds, Devonta Smith might be taking over wide receiver 1 in Philly. But I think that A.J. Brown might just have been hurt. So that's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah, no, Devonta Smith popping up as number 1 on this list. Yeah, like you said, it was an odd game. It's week 1. They're going through some coordinator changes. They're figuring some things out, but Jalen Hurts completely won that game. Well, put him in the situation at first and then put him on their back and won the game as well. So like you're saying, these are the kind of the things where you're going back and this is built to, it's not obviously watching the film, but it knows kind of the GPS tracking of these guys and where they went and who was covering them and how much separation they had and all those kind of things on. And so when you put all that together, it makes some sense. Devonta Smith looked decent out there. So you're saying he's the number 1 guy here.
Yeah, I'm saying he has the biggest case to say, give me some more targets next week, right? And I think we saw with the Chargers last week against the Chiefs that the Chargers led the NFL in pass rate over expectation, right? They came in and passed the ball. And a big reason for that, I think, is they knew who they were going against, right? They were going against Mahomes. They knew they had to score.
Right.
I think the Eagles are going to do something similar next week. We'll see. That's more of a gambling kind of DFS thing, but I think the Eagles are going to come in next week, and I think they're going to throw the ball more, and I think they're going to let Hurts loose. And assuming that happens, I think Devonta Smith is going to have a much bigger game than maybe his projection will show.
Right. And then the predicted ADOT for him, as we'll look at some of those on this, but he's at 5.45. So he's going to be potentially working a little closer to the line of scrimmage rather than maybe some of those deeper shots.
Yeah, assuming that sticks, right? Assuming they keep him in that same role, he'll be in that kind of 5 to 7 yard range. And if he's getting open, Hurts loves that range, right? Hurts isn't he likes to throw the ball short. So there's a world where he gets 10 targets next week. There's a world where he gets more than that, right?
Sure.
And to me, that is I am all about a wide receiver 2 getting a lot of targets, right? I'm going to bet on that every single day. So Devonta Smith is probably the most exciting, at least high upside play on the list.
And I don't know where McDuffie will be in that alignment for Kansas City. That could play a part in it as well. Finding the better matchup there. So, all right, hit me with some other names on this list because I like some of these names on this list. Got me pretty excited.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go down the list at least right now, and we can get to the special players in a second. But I think like DK Metcalf is the next player on the list. He had a fairly decent game last week, but really not anywhere where he should have, right? And so a very important part of share of predicted targets and share of predicted air yards is that it's a share, right? So it's about the players around you as well. Who else is running routes on this team? And DK Metcalf is a great example of a player that is simply better than the other players running routes, right? There's really no other player on that Steelers team that is as good as DK Metcalf, right? It's just there's no one even close to as good as him.
Yeah.
And so he kind of, by virtue of that, gets to have a little bit of a higher predicted WOPR, right? Even if he's not running routes as good as other players on this list, because he isn't having to compete with the best players, like the absolute best wide receivers in the NFL, he, by virtue, is going to have a slightly higher predicted WOPR because of the competition around him.
Yeah.
And, I think that especially if the Steelers offense continues to click like it has, I think that DK Metcalf could be in for, an explosion game as well. I definitely would not count him out from having a massive game this week.
Yeah. I'm all in on team DK Metcalf. So like that a lot. Next guy on here, if you're ready to move on, is a rookie who is blowing. He was gaining steam, ripped the knob off at 10 here in week 1 against Atlanta. We talked about this in another show. If he was a thermometer, the mercury would be shooting out of the top right now for dynasty value. Got to be pumped if this is guy. So Tampa Bay Buccaneer, Emeka Egbuka here coming in at 3rd.
Yeah, I think I was pretty shocked to see him come in at 3rd, to be honest. Like I don't.
Is that because he had a good game?
No.
So would that not be indicative, or does that not have anything to do with it?
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. The model doesn't know if you got a target or not, really, right? The model just predicts if you should, right? So the model doesn't know that you scored 2 touchdowns. It has no idea. The model just sees what you're doing on the field. It sees, are you getting open? Where are you getting open? And the model really liked Emeka Egbuka, and it makes me scared because I don't have enough dynasty shares if this is the case. I think that, and this goes to what I just said about DK Metcalf. He doesn't have anyone he's competing with. DK doesn't, right? DK Metcalf doesn't. Emeka does, and I think that's what's really interesting about this is that he has Mike Evans there, and I know Evans is getting old, but to put up a really good WOPR, he had the 13th best predicted WOPR. To put up the 13th best predicted WOPR while having Mike Evans on the field is really impressive, right? And I think that if I'm on Dynasty, this is the number one screaming thing for his Dynasty value, in my opinion, right? If I see this, I kind of want to go buy high on him. Right. And Dynasty, I think he's worth buying high on right now. I don't know what his exact Dynasty price is, but I would buy him at it, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. That's a really good sign for him and the future of Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah. Now, does this take into account the matchup of who they are playing? And then furthermore, would it account for so Egbuka was in a position where he had to continue scoring points because they were trailing. Does any of that factor in to how the next matchup might go, or that it does
not? No.
Okay.
This is purely, were you open? Did you earn should you have earned a target on a play? Right. It does not, I don't take into account anything else, right? It should you earn a target on the play, and how did the rest of your teammates do? Right? Should they have earned a target on the play? And it's simple division, right? It's just, should you have earned a target divided by should the rest of your team earn the target, right? And that's ultimately how we get here. So it does not have to do with situation necessarily. Each play it does, right? So I take down and distance into consideration, and if you need to pass, stuff like that. But it does not take into account are you down 3 scores? It doesn't take that into account. It doesn't take into account any of that.
Does any account get taken into who the corner was on them in the last matchup? Would that, so you're saying would that change any data?
So in the model that we're seeing, I do not account for that, right? So it is just simply, are you open, and should you have gotten a target? Right?
Yeah, let's just say really Calvin Ridley had Surtain on him all last. Is there any extra weight for the caliber of player that maybe would have been guarding you, or the data just doesn't care about that?
Data doesn't care about it, right? It is, were you open? Right? That's just, it's really that simple. It's did you earn separation? And how did the rest of your team do at earning separation?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that you can take that into account yourself, right? If you see someone with a low predicted, WOPR and they had to go get Surtain, take that into account, right? I think that's the human element for sure. Yeah. But it does not take that into account.
Okay. Let's keep it moving here. Who's the next guy on the list? Because this one's definitely somebody, if you needed a streamer, maybe, the last 3 guys were pretty big names. Everyone's probably playing those guys. Next guy, I feel like he probably pops up on this list a reasonable amount.
That's actually a good call by you. Alec Pierce. He shows up quite a lot. And last year, every time he showed up, he would score a big touchdown the next week. But there's kind of a bad thing. He has a different quarterback, right? He is dealing with Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones had an awesome week, but Daniel Jones is not a deep threat passer of the ball, right? He never has been. That is not a strength of Daniel Jones' game. And I think that that's where we're going to see Alec Pierce maybe like he's a player that I'm like interested in betting in DFS, but I'm not going to go all in on, right? Because he has a 17 predicted ADOT, right? He is running deep downfield. Mm-hmm. And Daniel Jones is just not the quarterback to make that happen, right? He's just not. As good as he played last week and as high, I think, as he's moved up in everyone's redraft rankings like crazy. I just think that he's not the quarterback that's going to take deep shots and make Alec Pierce a consistently viable weapon. He's the kind of quarterback that makes Michael Pittman a consistently viable weapon.
Right. Okay. Next guy, interesting. Got Xavier Legette coming in here next. I think a lot of people are pretty down on the Panthers and down on Legette here coming into week 2. So I think not so fast.
I think absolutely not so fast. I was high on the Panthers coming into the season, and I think I'm still high on the Panthers. I think that they have, in my opinion, the pieces to make something work, right? Mm-hmm. They have the pieces to make something work. They did not have a great game last week, and their defense was atrocious, right? Yeah. They only generated quick pressure on 3% of dropbacks. It was by far worse than the NFL by 10 percentage points. Woof. My point of saying that is that, they will likely be in games where they're going to need to score, right? They're going to need to score some points. And I think that I just have a feeling the Panthers are going to get something together. We just had week 1. It's just 1 week. There are plenty of instances where week 1 does not go well for people, and the team gets their act together and shows up. Bryce Young finished last season about as hot as any quarterback could finish a season, right? His last 8 weeks of the season, he was on fire. And I do believe I would rather take that 8-week sample size than this 1-week sample size. I think that the Panthers I'm generally high on, but I think that Xavier Legette, this is his highest predicted WOPR he's ever had, right? It's better than any predicted WOPR he had last season. To me, that's showing a growth, right? He's grown from year 1 to year 2. I think we will see more fantasy points out of Xavier Legette in the coming weeks.
Yeah, there were some targets there last week. It didn't work. I feel like they need to figure out the role for Legette in this offense, and then once it gets kind of sorted out, I feel like he's there's so much upside there with him. I think. I mean, and I've been kind of excited about him, but in the role he was cast in last year, it wasn't appropriate. And so I want to see last year. Week 1 was also like a wacky game, just in general of the weather delay and just the whole thing just felt weird. And so, like you said, we saw the Saints be awesome for 2 weeks last season, and then it really dropped. So, we can't get too caught up in exactly who you were week 1 necessarily.
Absolutely. I don't think that I think the Saints are a great example last year. I mean, the year the Packers got like blown out. Was that last year? They got absolutely blown out. I just think that it's week.
We played the Eagles week 1 last year in Brazil.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was last year. They got blown out, and then they ended up being fine, right? I think that week 1, it's just 1 week. I don't think it's something I'd put too much stock into, but I do put stock into PWOPR, right? Pee Whopper. And Ted McMillan also, he had the 15th best predicted WOPR in the NFL, which was 2 spots below Emeka Egbuka, right? Yeah. He also had a great game. To me, Bryce Young is just primed to do something good this year. So I'm still very high on the Panthers. So
good news there for the Ted owners, right? He's not quite on this list, but positive.
Oh yeah, exactly. This is he's not on this list, but he is he's in a great position. He's 2 spots below Emeka Egbuka, and he is in wide receiver 1 conversations for Predicted Whopper.
Yeah. All right. This is probably another one, maybe sort of like Alex Smith, but I feel, or maybe sort of like Alec Pierce, but I feel more confident in the quarterback play to get it done, and the receiver pecking order maybe a little higher, and Trey Tucker coming in next on this list.
Yeah, Trey Tucker he showed up a lot last year. Right. Mm-hmm. He showed up a ton last year, and it's because he's like pretty good at football. I think that he's pretty good at football. I think that it's something that at least last year I was always kind of like, Trey Tucker's here again. And then he would score a touchdown, when he'd show up, but it was kind of like, what's he doing here? Like, how does he keep showing up on this list? And it's because he, in general, is getting open, right? At least, on some of those deep passes, he's getting open, even if maybe the quarterback's not seeing him or the quarterback's not attempting that level of a deep throw. He is getting open. And I think that Geno Smith might be more willing to do it than some other quarterbacks. So, and we saw last week, Geno Smith did pretty good.
Yeah, that predicted ADOT second highest on this list right here at 22.67. So
yeah, he's got like one of the highest in the entire NFL. He's running deep downfield routes, and that's going to be real hit or miss, right? He's going to have weeks where he scores you 20 and weeks where he scores you 0. But we want to
take you over the top. Right. Could take you over the top and suggestion. Maybe this could be another week of good Trey Tucker here.
If you're looking for more FFD, sign up for a Patreon or YouTube membership and get access to the ADP, Dynasty rankings, the rookie draft kit, and extra shows every week.
Next guy on the list is probably my favorite guy on the list. Big Cedric Tillman podcast all off season, and it's nice to see Ceddy Till on this list here. So tell me about Cedric Tillman here.
Yeah, I think I kind of expected to see like Fannin or Jerry Jeudy on this list. I did not really expect to see Cedric Tillman, which is great news for Cedric Tillman, right? Like that's good news for him. He is getting open, right? He is he's actually getting open. I'm going to double check right now. I want to see where he ranks in regards to the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, so he finished with the same predicted WOPR as Jerry Jeudy. They finished like right beside each other. Jerry Jeudy finished with 0.56. Cedric Tillman finished with a 0.54. That's like 1A, 1B material if that keeps up, right? It is not. They will finish as like 1A, 1B on the Browns if that is the case.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm pretty high on him for that reason.
He just, to me, he just kind of predicts as your prototypical one. And so that Flacco could be in there and raise the tide of all these boats. It makes me feel really confident in Tillman. And where you drafted him, he can be you could slot him in as your wide receiver 3 or a flex play. And him popping up on this list makes me warm and fuzzy inside for sure.
Yeah, no, I think especially while Flacco's there, to me, this is an easy flex start. I mean, it depends on your team and everything, but I think that this is while Flacco's there, it's good to have him on your team. Be happy.
Yeah. All right. I think we've got 2 more guys on this version of this list. The next guy I think qualifies a little more in the Trey Tucker area, right?
I feel a little bit better about, at least for this upcoming week, I'm very interested in Tyquan Thornton. He shows up with a really good predicted ADOT. I was reviewing last week and looking at various things for some of the articles I write at PFF, and Thornton was wide open for a few plays, right? Like he was wide open, and either Mahomes missed him on a few of those or Mahomes didn't even see him on a few of those. And he could have had like 150 yards in that game that he didn't. And to me, coming up this upcoming week, I think that there's a good chance that he catches one of those deep passes, right? Yeah. As far as gambling goes, I'm a big gambler. I am all in on like Tyquan Thornton catching a 70 yards and a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be betting
take the over.
Like I will not even take the alt over is what I would do. I'd be alting that to the max line and getting a touchdown. And
make sure you go check that out on Profit X over there, the new sponsor of the show. So I'm sure you can find a nice Tyquan Thornton line over there. Yeah, I would say Thornton probably wasn't coming in being schemed up in as big of a game plan as maybe they thought initially coming into that game. And then by the end of it, so maybe, Mahomes isn't focused on him as much. They're not he wasn't, but now, like you said, they're going to go back, look at the tape. This is suggesting one thing. The tape suggests that, hey, he's been open a couple of times. So I think they right that wrong this week with him being an integral part of the game plan coming in from the jump.
Yeah, no, I think with the current state of the Kansas City wide receivers, it makes a lot of sense to form a deep game plan around Tyquan Thornton. And based off these numbers, he was doing a good job at getting open. And I think that we will, if I like for, many DFS stacks and stuff, I'm all in on putting Devonta Smith on one side and putting Tyquan Thornton on the other and, seeing what happens.
All right, last guy going to operate quite a bit differently than Tyquan Thornton. We got Demario Douglas, Pop, coming in here.
Yeah, and he really. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't get more action in week 1. I am pretty surprised, but he has the best predicted WOPR on the team. Let me double check that just to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. But yeah, he has the best predicted WOPR on the team. It's a good amount higher than Kayshon Boutte. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's Kayshon Boutte has a 0.38 while Demario Douglas has a 0.53, right? Demario Douglas was open more often than Boutte, even if Boutte was getting the receptions, he was getting the targets, he was getting the yards.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that this is a great example of a time they will go back, see how open he was, and he will get more targets than he is projected to get.
And they got to be easier targets than the ones you're given to Boutte too. And McDaniels has got a history with some slot guys, and just, hey, make this easier on you. He's getting open.
Yeah, and their teams are going to adjust a lot after this first week, and
Sure.
I think that a lot of the adjustments we'll see will come from teams adjusting to their wide receivers that show up on this list.
Right. Well, this is a great list. We're excited to talk about this list almost every week here from here on out. Joseph, where can we find all your stuff? Anything else you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Twitter at Koala Quality Stats, right? At Koala TY Stats. I had to think about how to spell it for a second. And you can find me on Substack, right? I write about this stuff every week, and I provide a lot of valuable information to people. I use this to gamble. Last year, I made $15,000 using things like this, right? And yeah, you can find me there, and you can find a lot of the articles I write about this stuff on PFF, right? So I write articles for PFF every week, and I come out with 2 articles every single week about this kind of stuff and how you can use it.
What day does this article usually hit PFF?
It'll be like Thursday or Friday. It kind of depends. If there's a player on Thursday Night Football, they'll get it out before Thursday Night Football. But if there's not, they'll get it out on Friday.
Yeah. So make sure you're going over to PFF and checking this article out. A lot of valuable information over there. Again, if there's one stat you need to know, it's this one, man. It's predicted WOPR, the Whopper, the Pee Whopper, if you will.
Pee Whopper. There we go.
Pee Whopper. And you know, the article is, I believe you call it route-based heroes.
Route-based heroes. Yeah, I wanted something a little catchy because they're heroes. They're going to come save your team.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, Foreigner, or is that Foreigner or Junie? Foreigner? Did they do Jukebox Hero? Who did that?
One of them, yeah.
It'd be a route-based hero. just like I think that was Foreigner. All right.
I think it was Foreigner.
We'll figure it out next week, and we'll get a theme song going.
Or we're very wrong, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. If you want more FFD, you can come check us out on the Patreon side of things, get an extra episode every week. We got plenty of live shows. We got redraft stuff going on in the FFD fantasy. Chev's holding it down. Chev and Joseph will be doing a live show with some gambling action, right, Joseph?
I think that's the plan. We're having a production meeting about it tomorrow, but we're gonna, do a show on Friday, and we'll probably talk about some of these players, right? We'll talk about some of the other things that I do as well. I'm big into like tail events and alt lines, right? Like I do a lot of alt gambling.
Yeah. There's a big. It would be exciting, and that's gonna be live on Fridays with Chev. I think I might join this Friday and hang with y'all. But make sure you're tuned into that. We got a live football show coming on Wednesday. We got the live show on Monday at 11. The football show. We got Dynasty shows, and then. Again, make sure you're tuned into all the redraft stuff on the other side of things at FFD Fantasy. Chev's bringing it to you pretty much almost a video a week over there. So make sure you check all that out. Until next time, I'm Casey. He's Joseph with FF Dynasty. Peace.